It was a dreary October evening when my friends and I decided to explore the old Whitmore mansion on the outskirts of Savannah, Georgia. Savannah is known for its charm, historic architecture, and vibrant culture, but it's also infamous for its ghost stories and haunted locales. The Whitmore Mansion, with its decaying grandeur and eerie reputation, was the perfect setting for a Halloween adventure. The mansion had been abandoned for decades, its once beautiful facade now covered in ivy and grime. The front porch sagged under the weight of time, and the windows were boarded up, giving it a menacing, derelict look. The stories about the mansion were legendary around Savannah. They spoke of a tragic figure, Mary Whitmore, who had lived there in the early 1900s. Mary was said to be a stunning beauty with a tragic fate. Her life was cut short under mysterious circumstances, and local legends claimed her spirit haunted the mansion, seeking vengeance for her untimely death. We arrived just as the sun was setting, casting long, eerie shadows across the overgrown lawn. We parked our old pickup truck on the side of the road, the engine's purr fading into the distance as we approached the mansion. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and decay, and the wind rustled through the skeletal trees, adding an unsettling soundtrack to our adventure. Inside, the mansion was even more unnerving. Dust-covered furniture and cobweb-laden chandeliers gave the place a forgotten feel. The floorboards creaked under our weight, and every sound seemed amplified in the silence. We made our way to the grand ballroom, where we planned to conduct a seance and test the legend of Bloody Mary. As we set up our gear, a couple of flashlights, an old Ouija board, and some candles, I could feel the tension in the air. The ballroom was a vast, open space with high ceilings and broken windows that allowed the night breeze to whip through. The chandeliers overhead were mere skeletons of their former selves, hanging precariously from the ceiling. We lit a few candles and placed them on an old, cracked table in the center of the room. The flickering light cast long, dancing shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere ripe for ghostly encounters. My friend Josh, always the skeptic, joked about how we were all getting spooked over nothing, while Ella and Lisa, true believers, looked more than a little nervous. With everything set, Ella suggested we try summoning Bloody Mary. The idea seemed ridiculous at first, but with the night's eerie vibe, it felt oddly appropriate. Ella took a deep breath and positioned herself in front of a tarnished mirror that we had found in the corner. The mirror was small and grimy, but it still reflected the candlelight in a dim glow. "All right, here we go," Ella said, her voice shaking slightly. She began to chant, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." We all stood around the mirror, the silence in the room growing heavier with each repetition. The first few attempts felt like a harmless prank. But as we chanted, the room grew colder. The candle flames flickered wildly, and the temperature seemed to drop suddenly. I could see my breath misting in the air, a stark contrast to the relatively warm evening we had left outside. The mirror's surface began to ripple, and a dark, shadowy figure started to form. The figure was that of a woman, her face partially obscured by a veil of blood, and her eyes were wide with a mix of rage and sadness. Her expression was one of pure torment, and her gaze seemed to pierce right through us. A chill ran down my spine as the figure in the mirror reached out, her blood-stained hand pressing against the glass as if trying to break free. The room was filled with an icy draft that made us shiver uncontrollably. My heart raced, and I could feel the weight of fear pressing down on me. "Guys, this isn't funny anymore," Josh said, his voice barely above a whisper. He was visibly shaken, his usual bravado completely gone. Ella, who had started the chant, was now frozen in place, unable to look away from the mirror. The figure's eyes were locked onto hers, and I could see the terror reflected in Ella's face. Lisa and I exchanged worried glances, the reality of the situation sinking in. The candle flickered out suddenly, plunging us into darkness. The mirror was now a pitch-black void, and the cold in the room seemed to intensify. We could still feel the presence of the spirit, a palpable weight that seemed to press down on us from all sides. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of our panicked breathing. After what felt like an eternity, Lisa managed to relight the candle. The mirror was once again reflecting our terrified faces, but the figure was gone. The room slowly warmed up, but the feeling of dread lingered. We quickly gathered our things and made our way to the door. The mansion seemed even more oppressive as we left, the shadows appearing to follow us. As we stepped outside into the cold night, the rain had turned into a heavy downpour. We sprinted to the truck, our fear palpable and our hearts racing. Once we were back on the road, heading away from the mansion, we couldn't shake the feeling that we had stirred something that was better left undisturbed. The experience left each of us haunted, and in the weeks that followed, we all experienced unsettling occurrences. Strange noises, flickering lights, and a general sense of being watched became common in our homes. The Whitmore mansion was eventually torn down, and new developments replaced the old structure. But the legend of Mary Whitmore, the tragic figure who became Bloody Mary, continued to linger in the memories of those who had dared to confront her spirit. The story of that Halloween night became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the power of local legends and the thin veil that separates our world from the unknown. The mansion is gone, but the chilling encounter we had with Bloody Mary remains vivid in our minds. It taught us that some stories are more than just folklore, they're warnings of the forces that lie just beyond our understanding.